Welcome back to Pagan Valley, everyone. Tonight we are returning to one of the most popular analog horror series on YouTube right now and looking at the next part in its complex story. I am of course talking about the Mandela Catalogue, a juggernaut in the genre of analog horror that I have talked about in detail earlier this year. With its latest release a few days ago, the best way I can describe what has happened is I was trying to solve a complex jigsaw puzzle, only for this video to come and dump a bunch of pieces I needed to even finish it. And that's what Volume 333 is. As most of you remember from this series, Volume 2 has this enormous time jump from the early 90s to the late 2000s. And as we'll get into later, Volume 333 begins to bridge that gap. So before we get into this long, complicated video, I believe we all could use a quick refresher. But instead of listening to me recap my theories, you can just go rewatch the series yourself and come back here if you want. Anyway, the Mandela Catalogue takes place in Mandela County, where hostile entities have been attacking citizens. These entities have been labeled the Alternates, and through the series there have been ties between them and some religious symbolism. So far we have had two major incidents in the story involving attacks made by an alternate. The first was the death of Mark Heathcliff in 1992, and the second was the attack on Jonah and Adam in 2009 upon their investigation. However, there has been a character in the background of this series who will be the primary focus of Volume 333, and that is Thatcher Davis, a lieutenant of the Mandela County Police Department who has been investigating the Mark Heathcliff case. Prior to Volume 2, Thatcher Davis was following the series of events that led to Mark's death, including capturing the footage from Mark's camcorder, which we saw the footage of in the exhibition video, and how Mark was constantly going to the local church, which in my video I saw that as Mark being lured to the church by the entities, but as we will see in Volume 333 I was wrong. Also, if we stick to the theory that Caesar is the host of the alternate that killed Mark, then that means that Caesar is somewhere loose in Mandela County, which in this new video we will see posted signs about. So in Volume 333, we are returning to 1992, and following the story of Thatcher Davis and his investigation into the death of Mark Heathcliff. However, there are some important clues that I'll explain what I think they mean once we get to them. So let's return to the most infamous county on YouTube today, and continue the story of the Mandela Catalogue in its latest video, Volume 333. The latest video begins by introducing us to a house in Mandela County and some familiar imagery we've seen in previous videos. We have returned to the house that one officer from the previous videos investigated the outside of, and if we remember, the reason that officer was there was because of the woman who hung herself in the baby's room. And we learned this woman's name, Lynn Murray, who just divorced her husband, Jude Murray. Which is actually an enormous reveal to the overall story because this is where the 1992 events are being connected to the 2009 events. Lynn Murray is somehow related to Adam Murray, the paranormal investigator in Volume 2. And in that video, Jonah lectured Adam about an unnamed her that was attacked by the alternate. Also during the phone call between Lynn and her ex-husband, they mention having something unplugged that's causing the baby to cry. And Lynn says that she's had it unplugged for weeks. And if we remember from the video from before where Lynn dies, there was a TV in that room where the alternate appeared from before taking Lynn's baby. The next important part of this video is the public access broadcast of Thatcher Davis being promoted to lieutenant back on April 4th. Which would have occurred before the death of Lynn and Mark Heathcliff. And we are introduced to Ruth Weaver, who was just promoted to sergeant. The next segment gives us a recorded phone call from the school receptionist calling the police about Mark Heathcliff not being in class and that the school wants to send an officer to check on him. which then we see the officer who first discovered Mark in his room, which started Lieutenant Davis's investigation. The officer finds the TV from the exhibition video and a tape recorder sitting beside the bed, which will come into play later in this video. The last thing the officer recovers is Mark's Bible and his notebook titled Reassurances, which Thatcher Davis will look into later. Our video then cuts to outside the police station where we hear a conversation between Davis and his partner Weaver. Davis talks about a new lead in the case he is following despite him not having to as a lieutenant now. Then Weaver leaves him for the night at the station. At this point, the video changes to photos of the collected evidence that Davis is examining, including photos of Caesar and Mark and their fingerprints. Caesar's fingerprints were on Mark's doorknob, confirming that the alternate who has taken over Caesar was the one we saw in Mark's room in a previous video. We then get a list of things Mark had touched before he died, like the handgun, the tape recorder, the notebook, and the camcorder the officer had recovered. The recovered tape that was in the camera was called Shadows Under the Door and shows what looks like 2 feet levitating behind the door before gracefully touching the ground. It does say shadows under the door, so this could be a trick of the light, but if it isn't, then we could say that this is our angel from the very first video in the series, who flew into Mark's house just like they had done to Mary and Joseph's. Next, we listen to the tape that Mark recorded called Voices Outside My Room, during which we can hear multiple voices speaking from behind Mark's door, trying to tempt him into opening it.
You need to open the door. No. I am not going away.
What time is it? It's just after 8. I'm nervous for the time. Don't be nervous about the time. You have loads of time. Let's see.
Lastly, we get to read inside Mark's notebook, where it is revealed that Mark is extremely religious and reassures himself that God is going to protect him. Which is what I was talking about earlier where I was wrong about the exhibition video. Mark was going to the church because he thought it would protect him, when actually it's where the alternate is strongest, which will tie into my theory later on. At the end of this notebook, we get Mark's final words where he says, "My eyes are wide open," but we know he would take his own life because of the alternate. But I have a different idea. I think once the alternate gets inside Mark's room, I think he had learned the truth about the alternates, and instead of giving them another host to use, Mark took his own life instead. But what truth did he learn that led him to this? We'll keep trying to answer that as we go through this video, and I'll explain my thoughts at the end. Next, we are shown the warning poster about Caesar, and next to it we see a poster for new recruits at the MCPD, which explains the training video we have previously seen, showing that the police are understaffed during these terrifying events. After, we get this segment, which is easily one of the most talked about since Volume 333 came out. Davis has sent tapes to a third-party contractor to recover what was on them. Tapes related to the case regarding someone in the Murray family, with the first name left out. Later on, it's revealed to us that this was Jude Murray, Lynn's ex-husband, and during his investigation, Some tapes were recovered by Davis, and he sent them to be recovered by a David Lee of Tech Defect, who managed to save one part of the recordings the officers found, which we then get to watch, but it isn't like anything we have seen yet in this series.
Hello? Can you hear me? Oh, hello. Now, you may be thinking, who is this voice speaking to me through my television set? Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Stanley. It is very nice to meet you. Consider me a friend, because I might consider you one too. I like having friends. How many friends do you have? That's great. Would you like to know a secret of mine? I can make friends appear out of thin air. What was that? You want to know how? Well, I can tell you, but you have to promise me that I am one of your friends first. Great. First, we must consider what makes up a good friend. What do they sound like? What do they look like? What color eyes do they have? Always remember the most important rule. If there is a new friend that lives in your head, they're just as scared as you are. Okay. Have a friend in mind? Great. I think it's time to meet your new friend. Now just close your eyes and think really hard about your new friend. Can you keep an even bigger secret? I think it worked. Your new friend is somewhere in your house. Now it's up to you to go and find them.
Now, there are a lot of theories in the comments about what this is, but we'll talk about it in the rest of the theory later. Next, we get to listen to Jude's 911 call with the operator that he probably made after watching the previous tape that his TV recorded. Except it isn't a 911 operator, it was Thatcher Davis because the county doesn't have enough operators to answer all the calls, which is what we were told in Volume 1. But thankfully, Davis didn't watch the corrupted part of that training tape where the alternates tried to train the officers to not respond to encounter-related calls. However, when Davis asks for a description of the alternate from Jude, this happens, which is quite interesting.
It's gonna be fine. You just need to calm down. I wanna look at his face again. Okay. All right. Does this man resemble anyone you know by chance? No. What? I have never seen anyone in my life that looks anything like him. That can't be right. That doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense to Davis because from what they have been shown using the tapes we saw earlier in the series, the alternates have always taken a familiar person as host, but whatever is in Jude's house can't be described at all, which confuses Davis before he sends his partner Weaver and the other officers to help Jude.
I just got a 10:15. I'm heading over to the place now.
Damn it. Okay.
What, did you get a similar call?
I believe we got a home intruder. I have apologize for the silence, sir. What's your address? Sir?
Thatcher, I'm gonna need some backup here.
What are you talking about? Where's the others?
The officer that was already checking out the place just pussied out.
Hey, wait a minute. By the police at Mandela County before switching to a slideshow of images an investigator took when surveying a home with noise complaints. The first image is our investigator walking up to the primary victim's home, which is followed by the investigator saying he felt an overwhelming sense of dread before leaving the scene. Since that investigator pussied out, anyway, this was that officer I called a pussy in my other video, who took photos from outside the house when we get the call from Davis, and then just left because he was afraid. But he wasn't the only one who went. Now Davis's partner is stuck outside the home by herself. After regrouping with her, Davis enters the home with his partner, where the two discover Lynn after she had already taken her own life in the baby's room. Later, the two officers are attacked by Jude, who has now become a host for the alternate inside, forcing Davis to escape and leave his partner behind. Upon returning to the police station, Davis tries to get backup from the neighboring counties, but none of them send reinforcements, leaving Davis alone and his partner still being attacked by the alternate. Until we get the final scene in the video, where Lieutenant Davis is forced to come face to face with the monster attacking his town.
Are there any available units in this area?
Mommy? Wanna be my best friend? He likes to hide, but he wants to meet you. I want to play with him in the TV.
Stop or I'll shoot! I said stay back!
And here our video ends. Davis has been attacked by the alternate, and it's really heartbreaking that we hear the voice of his partner saying, "You left me behind." Also, some quick notes about this scene. With the subtitles on, when we see the alternate's face, they list off the people who have become part of the alternate after their death, including Caesar, Weaver, and Mark, but we can probably assume that Lynn and Jude are also a part of it now. Also, I have to give this props because this is the first time I've ever seen a series create a person that's stretching and morphing their face into the distorted, photoshopped images that is seen in a lot of series similar to this one. So that nightmare of imagining what it would look like to get your face to contort like that is now over because, well, there it is. And the bad decision Thatcher is obviously a callback to Mark, who also tried shooting a gun at the alternate, but this time Davis does shoot the alternate in the face, which does very little. Also, while writing this script, there was a short follow-up to this video titled "Every Day Gets Brighter," which is the motto for the Mandela County Police. I'm not going to play any of this video because it's super short and the acting is phenomenal, so much so that I feel like I would have to play the whole video to do it justice, so just go watch it for yourself. But this video is a recording made by Thatcher after the alternate attacked him, telling us that he is still alive. However, his tone has went from determined and suspicious to sounding pretty much defeated, which is fair considering you just lost your friend and coworker to an unstoppable being attacking your town. But the big added twist to this series is that Thatcher says he watched the alternate turn itself into a copy of him, even though Thatcher is still alive. So what the hell is happening? Well, like I said at the beginning of this video, it feels like a lot of pieces that were missing from the puzzle have finally been given to us, and now we can attempt to put a more concrete story together about this alternate in Mandela County. Whatever this thing is, it is known by the government as tapes have been made on how to combat it, but they don't know exactly what the cause is or how powerful the alternates actually are. In the area, children have mysteriously disappeared when they have TVs in their rooms, which is what we heard the little boy said through the mouth of the alternate at the end of that last video. One of the things that was played for those children was the Might of the Subconscious video, which allowed alternates to enter people's homes, which was the case of Jude and Lynn, that ended with them dying and their baby being taken. However, Davis was already investigating the alternate because of Mark Heathcliff's death, which led to his partner Weaver's ultimate demise. Lynn Murray had other family in Mandela County, including someone named Adam Murray, maybe a younger brother or cousin, but her death to the alternate would lead to him wanting to hunt down this entity that took a part of his family. So these two places in time have been bridged together finally, which leads me to my final theory about the alternate. And we kinda get a clue for this at the very end of Volume 333, where we see Jesus and a disciple before the angel fades into the background, which I interpreted as Jesus being another form of the alternate, manipulating the people of that time to turn into followers. And this leads us into my theory of what is going on. And it's funny because I recently covered Key Archives, and my theory of what was going on in that series is similar to this one. It's just the context is obviously different. A lot of people commented on my first video about the ties between all the religious imagery through the series, and yeah, it's obviously a part of what's going on. And a lot of these comments summed up the alternates as being some sort of incarnation of Satan, and I can definitely see that being a possibility. In my opinion, the whole Satan theory that connects everything together has to do with the first video, Overthrown. In that video's closed captions, we got this quote from Dante's Inferno, where Dante writes about Satan trying to overthrow God before being casted into hell. But a lot of theories focused on the idea that in this version of history, God was overthrown by Satan, and I don't think that's the case. From what I read from all of this, and what we have seen, Satan still was casted out from heaven, but from there, Satan came to earth to do what he does best, manipulate humans. Which he says in the first video when we read, "I deceive them, they have such weak minds." And tying in what we have seen, these alternates have all been some version of him after taking the form of a victim. And it's the reason why we are told to stay away from places of worship in the PSA video, because the whole institute of religion was all a deception. Gabriel, Jesus, Caesar, the people in the PSA, the intruder, the figure in the TV, the smiling man, whatever the hell this thing is, all have been Satan wearing a mask to lure more people to him. And in Volume 333, this theory is expanded upon. The first notable addition is Stanley, the subconscious friend that we have learned is an interruption controlled by the alternates that targets children. And it looks like it has been played for well over a few thousand of them. And this Stanley, in all of his creepiness, is Satan speaking to them in order to let in an alternate into their house. I mean, it has to be Satan, like listen to the way he speaks. No one innocent talks like this. The second is the death of Mark Heathcliff. Whether he is an alternate of Satan now or not, his death now has new context. Mark was a religious person who believed that he was following God, which we can see in his notebook. However, as these alternate attacks have increased around him in Mandela County, he felt more and more unsure about his faith, constantly having to reassure himself that God will protect him, and even driving to church where he believed to be safe. Until the alternates came into his house, and while tormenting Mark from behind his door, Mark realized the truth. Everything he had thought that would protect him, his whole life even, had been one big deception, and no one was coming for him. Leading to what I said earlier, that the alternate who attacked Mark didn't make him turn the gun on himself. Mark willingly took his own life, either as a way to escape or from the existential thought of there being no savior that drove him to do it. I know this has really become a bummer, but perhaps there is one that can fill that savior role. A detective of Mandela County who has survived his encounter with the alternates. Thatcher Davis is broken down, he's feeling hopeless, and now Satan has an alternate form of him to use. But he's not out yet. I know I didn't play the clip, but in that last video, Thatcher says he'll kill it if it's the last thing he does. And it's going to take Thatcher a long time because we know the alternates are still looming around Mandela County in 2009. But we have a hero in this series now, and we also still don't know the fates of Adam and Jonah either. So how do you kill an alternate? Well, guns seem to work pretty well against it, but there has to be a more permanent solution Thatcher can discover if he does survive longer. I do know that Satan and his alternate forms won't go down easy, and I'm sure they will leave a trail of bodies behind them to the bitter end. And that's where we are left. Like always, I just want to give some quick thoughts and props for this amazing video. I love the inspirations from several different sources, especially the Stanley character that's inspired by Jim Henson's Limbo. And I have always thought that the original video would be so perfect in an analog horror series, and since Alex will probably see this, thank you for bringing that to life for me. Also, the CG and animation of the alternate looked incredible. And like I already said, it's awesome to finally see what it looks like for a person to morph their face into what we have seen in a lot of series. And as much as I love broadcast interruption and analog horror, I think the choice to have this kinda be focused on police-related recordings is a unique idea, and I hope it continues in future videos. And I can't help but also mention Remy Abode in the list at the end of the video. I hope this is actually the creator of Gemini Home Entertainment and not just someone using his name. Please upload soon. I'm dying to continue the Gemini Home Entertainment series. Please, Remy, I'm begging. And that's Volume 333, a new classic in the discography of analog horror here on YouTube. But why don't you tell me what you thought of the video down in the comments and let me know of anything you caught when watching it. Also, while you're down there, why not like this video and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. Also, if you're interested in getting your name in the credits, consider becoming a Patreon supporter by clicking the link in the description. And if you're on Twitter and you want to hear about announcements for Pagan Valley, or curious to find a new series to watch, you can follow me there as well. With that, this has been Pagan Valley, and I wish you all a good evening.